Hi, it's Alexis, the avoidant therapist. Today we will discuss about the experience of dating an avoidant and how sometimes it can make you feel like a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster. Some of you might feel that you were secure before you dated your avoidant partner. And in this video, I'm going to explain why we feel like this, but more importantly, what we need to do to address this. I'll give you some tips towards the end to help you build the right relationship, the secure relationship with this partner who is avoidant like myself, which is not the end of the world if you know how to manage them, if you know how to create that secure base. So a quick word about being an avoidant attachment person. First of all, we love independence. It's very hard for us to be emotionally close to someone because we've never had this model when we were younger. That's why we have also this fear of intimacy, fear of commitment. And what happens is when you're in a relationship with them, there's always this don't be too dramatic. They have a hard time dealing with emotions. They dismiss their emotions. So they also refer to dismissive avoidant for this reason. What you have to understand, and that's why perhaps it's very new to you, is when they dismiss things, when they pull back, it's never personal. It's never because of things that you said, things that you've done. It's usually a coping mechanism. Especially if you feel like, I never had those problems before. I was married or had kids, etc. with another partner. But with this person, it's different. Don't think it's because you've done something especially different. It's because how they react. And that's why it's very important to know about attachment styles if you're dating someone who has an insecure attachment style, whether they're anxious or avoidant, on how we can sort of adjust and figure out their world. Because it's by understanding how our partner reacts, their internal working models, that we can become better partners. And that we can know the user guide and know how to communicate and speak the same language. So this is the experience of dating an avoidant. Let me know in the comment section if you feel you can relate. The first climb, usually you build that connection. Sometimes there's this, kind of love at first sight element, which is not necessarily due to the fact that they're avoidant, but that's the experience. And then you have the drop. So always there's always a lack of consistency, the highs and the lows, and that's why we feel this way. And then there's a huge peak. So the reconnection, okay, what we had was real. Sometimes we have this element of love bombing, right? They are so invested. They are actually the ones wanting to see you, which makes things confusing. And then you have those mixed signals, on and off. Happy to see you, they need their space. They want you to meet their friends, but then they disappear. They open up, but at the same time, when you open up, they push you back. And at the end, you're kind of exhausted, right, by this. You're kind of fed up by this, and you're watching this video, figuring out how can I stop being in these loops? How can I stop feeling exhausted? I put some, so it could be high peaks. So you can have a lot of highs and lows, and you can have a lot of loops of mixed signals. The point is to be able to have a stable, because that stability will give you an element of predictability and help you to build a secure foundation if you want to have a healthy, meaningful relationship with this person. And it's possible if you do the right thing. So how does it work? Avoidance, they pull back when things get too close, too emotional. It's too much for me, right? Because it's very hard for them to accept that. And what happens is when you're dating someone anxious or secure leaning anxious, when they pull back, that activates this idea of oh my God, that's fear of abandonment. These wounds around abandoning their primary attachment figure. And so what happens is, because you activate this anxious side of their partner, when you reconnect, you feel like, I'm saved, right? This idea of the thrill, right, of this relationship. This is very important. People who have, and it's, if you have the book attached, and if you don't buy it, but if you have the book attached, he mentioned that in the book, anxiously attached people tend to disregard secure relationship because they treat them as boring, and they are attracted to avoidant partners, not because it makes them feel secure, but it makes them feel alive. And the highs and the lows, the thrill of the relationship is what attracts them. So if it's your case, you have to really ask yourself whether you are attracted to those highs and lows rather than attracted to a secure relationship, and figure out maybe in the past you sort of disregarded partners who felt too predictable, who felt boring, when actually they were just like secure and just would reply to your text, tell you that they cared about you, being attentive, etc., etc. The point here is not to end up in a cycle where, because they're pulling back, because they ask for distance, you chase, you ask for validation. So usually, and it's very hard because obviously when the person you care, when you love, the person you love the most is pulling back, there's like this impulse of like, I need to prove them that I'm important in their life. I need to show them how valuable I am. I need to fight for the relationship. So don't get me wrong, as a relationship therapist, I do agree that you need to fight in your relationship, that you need to work on the relationship, but it's finding the right balance between fighting for their attention, fighting because you just want to be looked, you just want to be considered, you just want to be respected, or fighting because you have a problem and you want to solve that problem together and become stronger as a couple. So that's the thing. You have to understand that this roller coaster is this cycle of hope and hurt. Because I don't know what will happen, because I live in the insecurity of how my partner will react in a way that creates a form of addiction. This is your relationship. So it's a screenshot of Candy Crush, one of the most popular video games ever. And the reason it's so popular is not because of the shiny colors, it's not because it's fruits. It's because they're using the same mechanism that they use in slot machine. Everything is random. So when you start the game, the layout will be different, and any game will be different, and you don't know what we'll get, right? That's why it gets you hooked, is because anytime you play, anytime you do, another run, you can't expect, you don't know what will happen. That's why slot machines are addictive. If slot machines were predictive, even if you are making more money, you'll be less addicted to those machines. So it's a cognitive bias that we all have, that we all share. It's this idea of unpredictability keeps you addicted because of the reward system, because how the dopamine intake in our brain function. Let me explain. We all crave predictability. Our brain craves predictability. We make calculations every single day, probability, and we want to predict what will happen. If I move my step towards, I anticipate that the floor will be even, and so on and so forth. That's how we sort of walk. When you have inconsistency, that creates the addictive reward loop that I discussed, that I explained a little bit with Candy Crush. The highs and the lows, okay? These are high dopamine spikes when you get their attention, when they're showing you their love, or when they love bombing you, right? When we think about the dopamine intake, because it spikes, right, you feel more strongly than if it's like stable. And that's the problem. So the thing is, unpredictability, which gives the high spikes, keeps you hooked. Okay? Because what you're after is the next high. If it was predictable, you wouldn't feel the same way. You wouldn't feel this rush, right? And as I said, you might consider the relationship boring, predictable, but that's also what we want. And the thing is, again, finding yourself or reflecting on whether you're not just a junkie of their attention, a junkie of those highs and lows. Okay, it's very important because, and the thing is, in some relationships, you want to create those highs and lows. So if people are, a lot of people who are married for 20 years, who take their partner, take the relationship with too much complacency and they don't work on the marriage, etc. Yes, it's too predictable, and therefore I'm not excited anymore, and I don't want this relationship, and therefore I'm gone. Okay, so it's finding the right balance. I'm not saying like having highs and lows are bad in themselves. I just want to highlight the fact that probably the reason you're hooked to this relationship is not because you love them, it's because you're addicted to this side of unpredictability. So the dopamine loop, how does it look like? You have this emotional distance, they pull back. Then what you do, you chase, over pursuit, okay? Then you have this reconnection for temporary time. Dopamine spike, I'm back, I'm reassured. He loves me, she loves me. we are together. Then back to distance, emotional distance, etc., etc., and that's a loop. Okay, that's where you're in. If you're having a hard time dealing with an avoidant partner, if potentially you broke up with an avoidant partner, this is how it feels. Like they took away this loop. They took away your dopamine intake. And that's why you're craving that attention. That's why probably if you are in no contact, you're desperate trying to reach out to them because you feel that one message, one word from them would give you that dopamine spike that you are craving for. So let's understand why avoidant struggle with intimacy. For avoidant people like myself, intimacy is, in a way, a loss of autonomy. If I'm sharing to yourself my vulnerability, my wounds, my insecurities, you can control me. You can use that against me, right? There's also an element of I want to have this image of I'm strong, right? And I'm self-reliant, right? And because I'm strong and self-reliant, I don't want to share those things. This also idea of being trapped in the relationship, okay? So as we get close to each other, not that I'm going to think 24/7 of cheating on you, but I'm sort of limiting my options of what I would do in the evenings, what I would watch on TV, etc., etc. There's also this element of emotional dependency. If you want to have a healthy relationship, you have to develop a form of emotional dependence with your partner. Not to the extreme of being codependent, but you have to be able to rely on your partner emotionally. The problem is for avoidance, somehow it feels unsafe. With this idea of like, again, I'm strong. If I open up, negative emotions are bad. I don't allow myself to be sad, to be depressed. And therefore, because I don't allow myself, I don't open the door to my world. And in exchange, if my partner is crying, is depressed, I'm going to have a hard time. Not that they're not empath, but they're going to have a hard time knowing what to do because they don't have the manual, right? So the point is, because they are wired to self-soothe and not to seek comfort, when they retract, when they pull back, it's not a question of like, I don't want your help because I don't care about you. It's really this idea, this almost system one brain, this primitive part of our brain telling them like, there's a danger, there's something difficult, I need to deal it with myself. Okay? And it's about their fear, it's not about their partner. Always ask yourself, would they react this way with someone else? 95% of the time, yes. You know, you can look at their history, you can look at other things that you've done in the past. That's not about you. Usually it's not about you. It's about how they decide to react. Or ask yourself, not if you were at their place, but ask yourself if you were dating someone else that you dated in the past, would they react the same way? Usually people say, I know it's true. So that's not you. Never use if you were in their shoes, because if you were in their shoes, you might use your own anxiously attached view of looking at things would be too far from their experience of things. So if you are dating an avoidant, this is usually how it feels. You're confused by those mixed signals. So as I said, one day super loving, super caring, the other day very cold, very distant, and you don't know what happened maybe, and sort of you ask yourself, maybe you say something wrong, you've done something wrong. This also disconnection, so emotionally disconnected, will create this self-doubt. So again, it's important. You have to be emotionally connected to your partner. If that person doesn't allow you to be emotionally connected to them, it's going to be very hard to have a healthy relationship with them. When you chase a person, when you're constantly trying to prove them something, you will be emotionally burned out, right? That's not a healthy way to consider a relationship. And again, with this idea of game. That's why the analogy of Candy Crush is a good one, because in a way, somehow it feels like you're playing a game. You don't want to play games, right? I'm making videos for people who want to have healthy long-term relationships, not like just playing games with their partner. Also, what we tend to do when we date someone avoidant is we overcompensate, okay? So let's say they don't reply to a message, so we call them. They don't answer, so we show up to their play, to their workplace, etc., etc. We try to always, there's sometimes an escalation of things. And what happens? Not always, but what happens is at the beginning, we're super empathetic. We ask, okay, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe, especially if you have an anxious attachment style, you will start solving the problem thinking like, I must have done something wrong. But then over time, because it feels like a game, you get frustrated, right? Because that's not the relationship you expected, because you feel that your needs aren't met. And in a way, feeling frustrated is a good thing because it helps you figuring out, okay, hold on, I need to take action. Things need to change. So how do we change things? How we break the cycle? You have to tick all those boxes. So take some notes. First of all, awareness about attachment patterns. That's why it's important to watch videos online, mine, others, read, buy the book attached. If the book is ready, get my book. When I launch a video, download my book, read it, and leave a review. Understand that avoidance, they need space, but not too much. It's really about finding the balance. It's about recalibration. It's important for you as well, as part of creating that secure base, to self-soothe. So it's finding sometimes people who have an anxious attachment style. Maybe they over-rely on their partner for emotional safety. So it's about like finding the resources, finding also the social support to have that element of self-soothing. The communication is key. It's about shifting things to, you always do this, to I feel. So using effective communication, non-violent communication. And there are tools in the description if you want to learn more about that. Now, I talked about emotional regulation, emotional connection. Both partners may work on that. If you're watching the video and you're dating someone avoidant, you pave the way, you start the process, but it's important to assess that your partner, it doesn't matter if they're avoidant, what matters is that they're working through that they're accepting that they have limitations, that they have insecurities, and that those insecurities are preventing them from having a healthy and resilient relationship. And also, last but not least, the black or white thinking. So a lot of comments on my videos are like, don't date an avoidant, avoidants are evil, etc. It's a spectrum. Your avoidant partner might not tick all the boxes of an avoidant partner. He might be super emotionally intelligent, but have a hard time with intimacy. It could be the other way around. Everyone is different, but it's having those conversations about that, about our insecurities, about how we can connect, about how we can understand each other's world. I'm calling this pragmatic empathy. And again, I'm going to talk about my book, but have a look. Hopefully the book will be released when I launch this video. Have a look. I'm going to create a book to really help people who have that kind of relationship, this roller coaster relationship, how they can learn from each other, and how it's kind of a guide that both of them can read to really break the cycles and work together as a team. Now, if you're an avoidant, you're watching this video and you want to learn or make that first step, ask yourself those few questions. If you withdraw when emotions feel too intense, if you label intimacy as needy or clingy, also ask yourself how not only how you manage vulnerability, but when I tell you vulnerability, what are the word associations? Negatives, positives, and ask yourself why. Why would I associate vulnerability with something negative? And it's about learning to be vulnerable step by step with your partner. An element of needs. Took me a while to realize that I have needs and that my partner can help meet my needs. So ask yourself, what do you need? What do you need in a relationship? Most of us would say, I don't need anything, right? That's a problem. So it's really about asking yourself those questions. Also about recognizing the patterns. When you have a conflict, you're shying away. Okay, fine. Why? What does it tell you about you? What was your reaction when you had a conflict with your parents? Aren't you, reproducing those patterns? Okay, what can you do to change that? Healing or developing a secure attachment style is something possible. You are not bound by your attachment. Plenty of studies have shown that you can develop a secure attachment style when you're an adult, even when you're in your 60s. Now with modern psychologies and the tools we have, at our disposal, you can develop this secure attachment style with cognitive therapy, with reframing, cognitive reframing, etc. That's what I do every single day with my clients. Now, if you're the one dating an avoidant, 7 things you need to remember. Avoidance. This is not personal. It's about their past, it's about their fear. Second element, or it's actually steps. Secure base. Consistent communication. Okay? If they don't provide that consistency, provide it to them. Develop this element of confidence outside of the relationship. So you don't want to be, the ideal relationship is not a codependent relationship, is where you have interdependence. It's very important, especially if you feel too far and then you feel like, it's because I need to connect more. No, it's about how you can self-soothe. This element of space, super important. Practice, see how it works, see how you feel, see how they respond to that. If you feel it's overwhelming, you're lost, seek support. Speak to someone, could be myself, could be anyone. It's important because sometimes we want to rescue a relationship that's not worth rescuing. We can't recognize that we're the only one working on the relationship. Maybe it's because there are some blind spots and we are doing things we are not aware of. So sometimes it's just a question of unlocking few things that really makes a huge difference. Therapy, if you have insecurities, if you have insecure attachment style, there's no other way around. If you want to have a secure relationship, you have to find someone to help you. And empathy, but pragmatic empathy. So it's about, I want to be able to understand your world so I can be a better partner. And I need to understand my world so I can express effectively what I need and what I want. And when I say both of you need to do that. Okay? By doing that, you have a clear idea. You have the user manual of your partner. You have your own user manual. And you can function as a team. And you can also, as part of this, laying down some boundaries of the things you want to see, the things you want to accept, and so on and so forth. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. And I'll see you next time, hopefully not in the roller coaster. Take care.